is Greg Edgelow. My ancestral heritage is Cree from Manitoba, and my sport is freestyle wrestling. I was bullied in grade 8, and I couldn't walk down the end of the school hallway without getting pushed into the lockers and punched. So I remember one day, and I can actually see myself right now, third person looking down, I can see myself hearing something on the PA system saying, "Wrestlers, don't forget about practice at 3:30. And I just thought to myself, hey, maybe if I got into wrestling, that would help me when I get into these fights, because ultimately they turned into fights when you're bullied. And so I decided I started to go to practice, and from then on, I've never had a problem with bullying. I think it's been a huge impact. I say sometimes when I'm talking to groups that I'm here today rather than in jail, an addict, or dead. Because of sport. When I look at the death and destruction and devastation of alcohol and drugs, and sport is what helped me navigate through the minefields of life. It gave me purpose. It gave me reason to go home at night, not stay out late and party and drink and do drugs. It gave me an opportunity to have hope for something bigger and better that most of my family never had or never went beyond, let's say, grade 10. So yeah, it gave me opportunity to get a free education at university, to travel the world, to meet world leaders, to meet other great athletes. It actually created the opportunity for me to come back to my ancestral roots and start volunteering with Indigenous youth, it's been great because I've been able to participate in 4 North American Indigenous Games as a volunteer and give back to the youth. So that's what sport has done for me. I mean, I think there's both sides of it. There's the wrestling piece. It's been able to, this is the tough part, because these are the things that trigger sort of emotion. I mean, I think representing my country at the Olympics and Pan Am Games and Goodwill Games, Canada Games, BC Games, all the different games, your university, those are all special moments in themselves for what they represent. And I mean, naturally winning the Commonwealth Games gold in Victoria, having family and friends and people able to see that is really special. I didn't actually have one family member, no, my brothers, sisters, parents, anyone, who ever saw me wrestle from grade 8 to 12. They never went to practice, never saw me wrestle, so nobody ever saw me wrestle. So nobody ever really knew what wrestling was. They didn't know what it meant to me. So it was kind of nice to have my family come and watch in Victoria, to watch the games and win there. Yeah, I find it really interesting because I have some cousins where they've got 3 kids, and every single weekend they're taking their kids to the sport and they're watching. I'm like, wow, what would that have been like to actually have parents come and actually see you participate? How much would that have created even more motivation as a kid? So those, every one of those games was a special moment. But what it also gave me is an opportunity to do something after sport, and that's through volunteerism. I remember after the Commonwealth Games, I was asked to represent the Commonwealth Games on the board of Athletes Can, which was the Athletes Association. At that point, I met Dan O'Thorne, who was the Indigenous representative, and from there, he helped create the first opportunity for me to give back by speaking at the Parade of Nations at the 1997 North American Indigenous Games in Victoria, where I was the motivational speaker at the Parade of Nations. So that was my first sort of opportunity giving back to Indigenous youth. And then from there, the Indigenous Sport and Recreation branch has sent me around to different places around the province to do wrestling demonstrations to youth and speak to kids in the schools. And that's been a lot of fun, all around the province. So, giving back to the kids and seeing them, I bring a medal from the North American Indigenous Games, and I bring the Olympic jacket, and I help them relive what an experience is to wear your colors and receive a medal and have those kinds of fun presentations when I talk to kids. Actually, what's interesting is that some people have known me for 20, 25 years. They never knew that I wrestled. They never knew I was in the Olympics. They never knew, that I've done the things I've done, meet and shake hands with Desmond Tutu or the Dalai Lama, and speak with Queen Elizabeth, or, meet leaders from around the world and some of the best athletes. So it's, I just keep quiet about it, and I just always learned that sport has given me an opportunity to be more open and actually be an advocate. Well, I grew up with the rhetoric that First Nation people were not to be associated with, a lot of negative stereotypes that came from my adopted father about my mother's family background. What is kind of shameful is that I, growing up in Vernon, the First Nation community, Okanagan Indian Band, lived on the other side of the lake. And when my uncle would come to visit us, I didn't want to be seen with him downtown, because what would people think, if they saw me with this Indigenous person. So I never grew up in the culture. I grew up with white privilege, living in a urban setting, and always being indoctrinated that Indigenous peoples were less than everybody else. But I always knew a little bit about our history, but nothing was ever solidified or captured in any form or fashion to really be able to feel any pride about it. And it wasn't until I started volunteering that I really started to embrace and understand the importance of Indigenous youth and Indigenous children, and how sports can really impact them. One thing I didn't like was when people gave up. Never give up. Keep working hard towards your dreams. Even if there isn't anyone there in your corner, we're not always going to have people in our corner, and you need to rely upon yourself sometimes. So even if someone's not there, you gotta push yourself and never give up, and just keep going. And the fact is, if you put your mind to it, you'll be able to achieve it. The fact is, I grew up during a time where anyone who was above a certain age, 40 or something, or 45, when I said wrestling, they thought pro wrestling. And then most people under that age didn't know what wrestling was either. So wrestling was this sport that nobody knew about. So I didn't do it for acclaim. I didn't do it for pats on the back. I didn't do it to see highlights on TV. It was a sport that I had a passion for. It was a sport that helped me, like I said, to navigate through high school, junior high and high school, without any issues and problems, and allowed me to stay in school. The motivation to stay in school, to go to university, get a degree. I'm not sure what would have happened had I not been in sport, but I shudder to think what could have. Well, I think it's really important that not just Indigenous youth, but everybody sees the talented people of Indigenous backgrounds here, all the various, over 200 nations here in British Columbia, and a lot of them represented with the great efforts of these Indigenous athletes. I just think that it's a long time coming. For years and years and years, nobody knew about these athletes. I grew up in Vernon, where Kenny McLean, was really the only First Nation person that you really knew about in this province, at least in our town. And he was an amazing horseback rider, and he was one of the few that didn't live on the reserve, and but to be living amongst everybody else with high acclaim and with respect. And I think that's what sport has given also to a lot of Indigenous athletes, especially from the past, is some form of respect that they weren't receiving before.
Yeah,